A lot of time, people spend a lot of money on snacks and going to shops like Trader Joe's or supermarkets and just letting their meal plan go to waste.
Hello and welcome again. This is Robert Shine with A Few Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Madison Evans. Hi, Madison.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Good. It's great to be back in the podcast studio and just be with you. And we're going to go through some great topics today. Today is the college edition. It's going to college takeover. We had the opportunity to have some college students in here, finance majors, great different backgrounds, all very encouraging, bright futures for these finance students. And
definitely.
They were excited to learn. I think we had the opportunity to teach them a lot this summer, but we're going to hear from them. So that's going to be this edition today. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you everyone for watching. Okay, let's welcome Ava, Sergio, Jake, and Jake on our podcast. Let's hear now some hot takes from our college students.
So today's hot take, a good credit score is more important than your GPA. What are your thoughts on that?
A good credit score is very important, but I think it's dangerous to make people think your GPA is also not important.
Good point.
I would say a good credit score is more important than the amount of money you have at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to say that GPA is not important either.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people essentially when they look at their GPA, I feel like, yes, you got to keep that up. But at the end of the day, when you do finish, your educational career, whatever you want to call it, that credit score does follow you for the rest of your life. Because 100%. I feel like school, we can go back and forth with this, but school is only the first portion of your life. And I feel like credit score accounts for more of your life.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So would you agree with that statement or would you disagree with that statement?
I would say, a credit score is more important than your GPA, but that doesn't mean don't pay attention to your GPA, I think.
Great
It's
response.
a good way to put it.
Yeah, great. So the next hot take.
Okay.
Being broke in college is not a personality trait. It's a lack of planning. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that, actually. I don't think there is an excuse to be the broke college student anymore. There's so many side hustles. There's so many ways to make money outside of just having a full-time job, a part-time job, whatever it is. There's really no excuse to be a broke college student anymore. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like a lot of people are, full of excuses. Yeah, they say that, with social media, there's a lot of distractions compared to like back then to now. But I feel like with that same device, the power of your phone, there are so many ways
100%.
of being able to make money. Even on social media, you can do what we're doing, hot takes.
Exactly.
Like something very simplistic that could get you ahead in the long term.
Yeah, my first 2 years of school, I was an athlete. So I was constantly bombarded with training, lift, film, whatever it is. And I still had time to find a way to make money. Even just, you can be a DoorDash driver.
Yes.
Make your own schedule, anything like that. There's always ways for you to make money as a student.
Yeah, even with like DoorDash or Uber, you can make your own hours.
Exactly.
Do you know the quarterback from Alabama? He was Bryce Young.
Yeah.
He used to do Uber. He was a full-time football player.
Yeah, exactly. Division I player.
Literally the head of Alabama back in his time. But he told a story where he always had a hat, had his little COVID mask on, and he would go and be an Uber, and he would do DoorDash, and he would make money on the side. Even though, back then NIL wasn't as strong as it is now. But he made a good amount of money. He didn't put a specific number on it, but he still had that side hustle. And I feel like that's what genuinely sets you apart from those who have that victim mindset and are like, I'm just broke. I'm always going to be broke.
Yeah. And if a Division I quarterback can do it, you can do it.
Exactly.
And now we're going to hear college students' opinions on budgeting.
So I think it's really important to think about not just making money in college, but also saving money in college. And I know that while you're in college, you want to balance spending time with friends and having fun, but a lot of times what comes with having fun is spending money. And I think it's really important to think about the benefits of being in college and all your resources. So for example, if your friends want to go out and get food often and you find yourself spending a lot of money on food, I have a few friends that utilize or maximize their food plan or their meal plan on campus, and so they usually eat meals while on campus but still make time to go out with friends and go to dinners, and they're there for the fun and they're there to spend time with their friends, but they're also saving money while doing it. So I think it's really important to think about, yes, making money in college is really important, but you also have to think about it on the other end, which is saving money.
Most people think budgeting is just saving money. Like, what are other ways to budget besides just not spending?
I think it's about finding ways to get discounts. My family, for example, we find ways to get good quality things while also saving money a lot. So my mom, for example, and one of my friends, she wanted to get this coffee maker because we're all moving into houses next year. And instead of going to buy a full price thing, she looked on OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace, and she bought things for a discounted value instead of just buying the full price. It was a new coffee machine, but she got it for $50 instead of, let's say, $125. So I think that's really important to research a lot of things and find certain ways to get things discounted. A lot of times there's student discounts. Yeah. For example, textbooks. A lot of times you don't necessarily need textbooks, but if they're very required instead of just recommended, you can always buy them used, or just find certain ways to buy them from past students who have them, or any other way to save money while spending money, but also just limit the amount of expenses that you acquire while in college.
So like piggybacking on like what you said earlier, like saving every dollar, especially since we're in college and we're like young. For example, like my girlfriend, she was like obsessed with matcha, and she would go out to get it like every single day.
Yeah, and even though it might seem cheap every day, it adds up.
Yeah, no, if you go out and like you're getting matcha and you're getting like a breakfast bagel and you come back, it's like $28 every time.
Yeah.
So like I just came up with a strategy to like make it at home, equated it out, and it was like $4 to make every time.
Yeah.
Which is like way better than like the $18 to $20 you're spending when you go out.
Yeah, and if you think about it indirectly, you're saving time, you're saving gas, you're saving so many things just by making it at home.
Yeah, 100%. That kind of goes into the whole like compound interest thing as well, as like since we're so young and like we don't have a lot of money right now because we're still in college, like students.
Yeah.
Like every dollar we invest right now is going to be worth way more in the future. So
yeah, especially if we don't have as much time to work, it's really important to
100%.
That compound interest.
All right, so you're still in college, and what do you see like with your friends specifically, like how college kids your age just like waste money?
I would say the biggest thing is people taking meal plans for granted. I think that now I'm going into my junior year, so we actually don't have meal plans, but during freshman and sophomore year, a lot of my friends, we would get 19 meal swipes a week. And by Sunday, a lot of my friends still had 19 meal swipes, so I would be using their meal swipes. Or when it hit Sunday, and let's say I had 5 more, I would go to our campus stores and I would use up those meal swipes and buy bottles of water or snacks or something like that, so that I had access to these things later on in the week or the next week, instead of just letting that money go to waste. Because a lot of time people spend a lot of money on snacks and going to shops like Trader Joe's or supermarkets and just letting their meal plan go to waste. And once that week ends, you don't have access to the rest of those meal swipes. So it's literally wasting money that you've already spent, and then also wasting money on food that you could have just eaten at school. So I think that's really important. And a way to save money when you're not on a meal plan is just be conscious. Don't let any food go to waste, and be conscious of how much food you buy, because it's important to meal plan and stuff like that. But if you're buying too much food, or you're not finding a way to efficiently spend money, or shopping at supermarkets that are way overpriced, I think that's also a way that people can waste a lot of money.
I remember when I was a sophomore at San Diego State, I would get these like smoothies every single day, and like I didn't realize like how much it accounted for money wise in my meal plan. So, and I like to eat a lot, so I would run out of money by like Thursday.
Yeah.
And then like Thursday through Sunday, like I would be out of pocket, like buying Chipotle every day, or like just spending useless amounts of money on food and just racking up a credit card bill over like the next like 6 months, which like I had to realize and stop doing that. So
yeah, and I think it's also important during college to think about every single experience as a lesson, because if you think about it, meal plans, it's meal swipes, whatever you're trying to ration, but you're also learning how to budget from those meal swipes. Because if you're like you said, by Thursday you run out of all your money, that's what you're given on a weekly basis. That's kind of like an allowance or almost budgeting, and you're learning. Those are skills that you're going to need out in the real world. So it's good to use them and think, okay, there's 7 days in a week. I can only use this much a day, or I can only use this many meal swipes, so that you're understanding that you don't end with too much, but then you also don't waste all of it in the first 3 days, because that's like how it is. Think about getting a paycheck. Are you just going to spend it all right after getting it, or are you going to budget yourself and,
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of meal plans like that colleges give out, like a lot of them are undervalued, and like they don't give enough food for the kids, which I agree is like a bad thing.
Yeah.
But like it's just the principle. Like you have to like plan accordingly and not run out of money by the time it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, and I think it's also important not always act on every urge, because you could wake up in the morning and you could think, wow, that Starbucks coffee sounds really good. Or you could think, well, I do have coffee at home, or maybe I should pass on this, or I have a meal plan that I need to use, or something like that, where you're learning discipline and you're learning to save money. And also, even though those really small charges every single day, like a $5 coffee, for example, well, let's say you buy coffee 7 times a week, boom, $35 wasted that week. And then if you think about it during the year, that's so much money wasted, just because, instead of making coffee at home, you're spending so much money on buying coffee out.
No, it's like insane. Like when I was a freshman in college, my dorm, like I'm a caffeine addict, just for context. Okay. Like I probably drink a gram of caffeine a day.
Yeah.
And like I would go to the shop and they would just upcharge everything. Like a rain there was like $6-7.
Yeah.
Coffee was like $4. And like I would get like 2 or 3 a day, and like I would just be racking $20 up a day for just caffeine, which is like absolutely ridiculous.
I started an Excel sheet during my spring semester of this past school year.
That's good.
Of all my expenses and all the money I made, because I was babysitting a lot at school, and it was unreal seeing how much I spent. And I had little different like segments of, okay, this is for gas, and then this is for like social, and this is blah blah blah, whatever, like the different expenses, whatever realm they fit into. And I had set kind of these predetermined, maybe try to hit like $50 on gas this month, or whatever the case may be. And it was unreal looking at what I had expected it to be and then what it actually turned out, because typically when you spend money in the moment, you're like, okay, I'm spending $20, and then it just a week later, you don't even remember that you spent that. But when you see it in an Excel sheet and you think, wow, I spent this much during January and I only made this much, if you actually see a numerical value, it becomes a lot more real, and you're a lot more aware of the money that you're spending. And right before spending it, you think, do I actually need this? Because it's going to go into the Excel sheet and it's not going to feel good when I see it. So you're a little bit more aware of spending.
Yeah, well, it's good you do that, especially in Texas. Like, you don't have to really worry about gas as much as California. I didn't even have a car my first 2 years because of that reason. Like, my parents just didn't let me. They're like, you're going to drive around and just, like, waste money on gas. Like, there's no reason for you to have a car right now.
Being in Texas is nice. That, like, $2, $3 gas.
Yeah, not 5.5,
And next, some networking tips from our college students.
The importance of networking is stressed all the time, but I feel like a lot of people are scared to meet new people or talk to strangers, scared to come into interviews, and just don't really know what to say to network properly. So I want to, tell me about networking, what we should be saying, and how to do it the most effective way.
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind when I think about networking and just putting yourself out there is, I always say to people, growth starts at the end of your comfort zone. And
like that.
Once you familiarize yourself with just speaking with people, it always starts with just throwing yourself out there. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. I think I started networking like a little less than a year ago. And it started off with me just sending out an email to somebody, or my sister knew somebody and she sent me their phone number. She met a girl who's in the real estate space, and I was a little terrified at the idea of not knowing who this person was and just having a phone number.
Yeah.
And so I prepared. It's always important to prepare. I started off writing emails to myself whenever I would be on phone calls with people. So I would put at the title, informational interview blank, whoever their name was, and I would just start typing in the email, and I would literally send it to myself, and I would put it in a folder. So I had access to all the things. And then I started doing Google Docs, and I would just create some good questions to ask them. It's really important to be curious. And the thing about networking is, 1, you could meet somebody that could completely change your life. Think about it as endless opportunity. 2, it becomes exponential at a point as long as you stay curious and you stay consistent, because it's easy to just get on a phone call with somebody, end the phone call, say thank you, and then never speak to them again.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest questions that you should be asking people at the end of the call is saying, who is 1, 2, 3 people that you recommend I follow up with, and would I be able to mention your name, or would you be able to connect me with somebody? So for example, let's say you're at a firm and I'm doing an informational interview with you, just asking, explain a typical day in your role. Or for example, another good question is asking, if you were in my shoes as a 20-year-old, what would you tell me? Or what is one of the biggest mistakes that you made in the industry that you would like to tell somebody to prevent them from making that mistake, so that you have an early step in, and that you're learning new things, and that you're preventing yourself from making easy mistakes that other people have made. Think of them as a mentor, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because a lot of people know you're coming to them to do an informational interview, or you're reaching out to them because you have questions. So if you don't ask questions, then what's the point?
Exactly,
and they understand that they're there to teach you and they're there to help you. So just be as curious as possible, and don't be shamed when you don't know something. Because another big piece of advice I say to people is in an interview, if you were to act like you knew everything, let's say you were to go do an interview with a firm for a potential job that you wanted to do, whatever, it's easier to be able to admit that you don't know something and to be able to pivot based on whatever answer they give you than to just act like you know everything and try to say something that is completely inaccurate or so false, because they're going to see right through it, and it's just going to show poorly on your character. And so it's always, always, always best to be as authentic as possible and show personality when you're with people, because that's how you grow bonds, regardless of if it's this corporate thing or it's this big business thing. It's not as scary as it looks, because a lot of time I've been on phone calls where I've ended a phone call with somebody who's at this big firm, or I just reached out to them and I have absolutely no connection with them, and we had this incredible phone call, and it was so intelligent and it was so fun and just a great conversation, and you're building a big bond with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And lastly, some extra financial thoughts from the college students.
Jake, so what really got you to pick your major, within international economics?
So I originally decided to switch into international economics because of my love for traveling. I backpacked through Europe for a few months, and I fell in love with Zurich specifically in Switzerland, and like how the market moves there, and like the different equities and whatnot. So that's like why I kind of latched
So
onto it.
what countries you traveled to specifically on your 3-month adventure?
So I spent most of my time in Western Europe, like specifically the Belgium, Netherlands. I went to South Germany for a little bit, Switzerland and Austria primarily.
So where do you think Europe genuinely stacks up differently compared to like U.S. markets?
Well, I think Europe actually still has a lot of growth to go. I mean, the fastest growing economies in the world are all in Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Cambodia specifically, like that region. China's kind of already peaked, and the U.S. has peaked in the past 10 years. So like, in Southeast Asia and Africa as well, those are the fastest growing economies in the world. And the next 10 years, that's where we're going to see most investors go.
Do you think in the future there will be another, leader within the finance market that outdoes the U.S. market?
I mean, there's a lot of catching up to do for sure. I think like percentage-wise and growth-wise, specifically a lot of countries in Africa that have these super high growth, like birth rates and growth rates, they're going to be growing the fastest. And that's where a lot of these people that already have money in the U.S. and China, that's where they're investing their money, because they see this untapped potential. And India as well is another candidate that I think has a ton of internal growth, because they have like 2 billion people that live there.
Exponential growth.
Yeah,
long-term.
exactly. It's a lot of extensive growth because of the population, but they need to work a lot more on intensive growth, where you have countries like in Scandinavia, for example, that have like, a few 100,000 people, but they work really hard intensively, and they have a lot of growth rates in that respect.
Or like people in Switzerland, I feel like they're not relatively populated as much as the U.S., but they're relatively wealthy.
100%.
Economy.
Yeah, no, Switzerland is, I think the average income there is like 180 grand a year USD.
Yeah. I feel like, them just being such a small economy, they're able to stack up GDP wise with all these other, first world countries essentially.
Yeah, 100%. It's got a lot to do with policy as well, though, because you have a lot more socialist policy in Switzerland, and that kind of leads to people just having better wages. And the U.S. is a lot more business oriented, just like Ireland is now. And Ireland is actually a really, really interesting country. It's like kind of became the new Switzerland.
Really? Yeah.
Based off of like tax reasons, and it's kind of like the America there. Everyone's moving there to start a business because of the tax-friendly environment.
So do you think Switzerland is, the king of Europe currently, or are there any other competitors that, are stacking up against Switzerland?
Well, it was the king of Europe for a while because of the banking industry. UBS is like one of the biggest banks in the world, and they started there. But now I think right now Ireland is the best place to start a business in Europe, and that's where like all the investors are going. And Switzerland's kind of fallen behind a little bit because of that, but I'm not too sure where it'll end up. But as of now, I think Ireland's the place to be.
So you're very optimistic with Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
I mean, I didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
It's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Blanky Shine Wealth Management, serving the Coachella Valley for the first 40 years and built for the next 40 years. And for more information about Blanky Shine, it's blankyshinewealthmanagement.com.
Why isn't financial literacy taught in high school?
I mean, I feel like we can go down so many different avenues. The educational system was, built for people to sit there for 8 hours, have their 30-minute lunch break and essentially be workers for the rest of their life. I feel like you can probably testify to this, but once you understand, and have financial literacy, being able to translate the numbers within your head and, regurgitate it out to other people, it really changes your mindset. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, to put it simply, it's just ants in the ant farm, right? Like, that's what they want. The younger you are and the faster you start to understand, like, how finances work and, like, money flow and stuff like that, that'll separate you as well as, like, getting a good education. Those two things are, like, key principles to escaping the rat race, in my opinion. And
no, I completely agree with that. I feel like, what happened with me, the way I started learning about finance was with my own father. He pretty much put a lot of things into perspective and put a lot of, steps in front of me so I can, advance within the finance industry or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like learning early on is what will genuinely set you apart.
that's the key, yeah.
With, exponential growth and understanding, small terms, I feel like, I don't know, within like credit cards or retirement funds or just different aspects within the finance industry, just understanding the basics, it helps build a strong foundation for your future.
Yeah, I mean, we got into compound interest a little bit earlier, but it's the tale of time. Like, the dollar now is going to be more valuable ever than in the future. So you might as well like get your money now and try to invest as much as you can, especially at a young age. Because no one our age is really doing that. Like, you have 10% of the kids our age that are actually like investing every single day. So
yeah, is there anything specific you like in high school you wish you knew that could have helped you now or earlier?
Yeah, just not blowing money on dumb stuff. That's the easiest one. Like, I'm a car guy, and I've blown so much money on cars. It's, like, ridiculous. And I'm starting to lose that hobby now because it's just too expensive, and I like, want to set myself up for the future and, be able to buy nicer things in the future. So
do you think that has to do with budgeting or, like, impulse buying or?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's budgeting. Budgeting is part of the equation, but, I mean, income is, like, your number one guide to financial freedom.
Yes.
So, like, you're going to have to, when you're young especially, like, you should be spending all your time learning as much as you can and trying to increase your possible income in the future, because it doesn't matter if you make 50 grand a year and that's what it is forever. Like, you can only save so much. It's just it's a finite amount. Like, you gotta be putting in the work to like set yourself up in the future.
Yeah, I feel like one thing a lot of people get wrong is that a lot of people spend more money than they make.
Yeah.
And that's what really puts them in the hole long term. Whether you get a credit card early or whatnot, I feel like a lot of people destroy their credit early just so they're like, oh, my future self will worry about that.
Yeah.
But your future self's gonna look back at you and be like,
yeah, I mean, Dave Ramsey's like, burn all credit cards, but like, I'm not saying I agree with everything he says, because he's super like interest. Like, he's like, put everything in the S&P 500 and you'll be rich, which like I don't agree with at all.
Me either, yeah.
But there's a fine line. Like, you definitely can't be spending all your money on credit cards and getting in debt. Like, you're gonna get killed by interest.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't really understand how much interest you actually have to pay, or paying off your credit card in full month to month, or you don't really have to put a lot of money on your credit card. I feel like you can go to, I don't know, Taco Bell, buy a little, like anything, and just keep that month to month, and it'll still build your credit long term.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to always just be like, I put money on my credit card, my future self will worry about that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a really big misconception.
You can spend $300 to $500 a month on your credit card, and like, you're still gonna build a nice credit score, which like is gonna be way more important than the $500 you spend every month.
Yeah, because it is money you don't have, whether your credit limit is 500, 1,000, or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like I did have that perspective in like my senior year of high school. I was like, oh, I have this extra 1,000.
Yeah.
Like, let's spend it.
Yeah, no, I have buddies like that. They're like, yeah, bro, I have like a $6,000 credit limit. Like, I could just spend $6K. I'm like, but it doesn't work like that, bro. Like, that's a dumb way to think about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Madison, we learned a lot from our college students, some great advice. And so we always love the opportunity. I always say this, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Right.
Especially for right now, everyone's going back to school. So we want this to be that college takeover edition of advice to yourself, especially if you're just starting out, you're bridging the gap. You're rising from being a senior in high school to, oh, now your first day on campus, parents drop you off, you're all tucked in, ready to go. And it's like, now what? So we wanted to give them some financial advice, but what better way from experienced students, right? Experience is the key here. So I think this was a value add, and I hope our audience really at least learn one thing, maybe two, and then like and subscribe, share this with somebody that you think in your network could benefit from that. So we really appreciate that too. So Madison, one of the most exciting things that have come from College Student Takeover Edition is our invitations from college campuses, both locally and all over Southern California, for you and I to take the few podcasts live. So we're going to be on campus. We're going to have conversations. We're going to bring in the students, and we're going to have those real conversations as to what's going on in their world financially, how we can help, maybe some of our tips and tricks and advice that we've seen. But yeah, the college edition now is going to continue to take off as a result of what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So everyone stay on the lookout for that. And as we always do, let me leave you with a quote by Rachel Cruz. A budget doesn't limit your freedom, it gives you freedom.
And one last thing for our audience, as we mentioned, we're going to be coming to you live this season from colleges, speaking about finances, budgets, and all the education and all the tips and tricks that we've learned, we can actually help share in that community moving forward. But if you're a college student right now or have a connection to a college and you'd like the few podcasts to come on your college campus, we can arrange it. So just send us a message and we'll get right out there to you if you think we'll be of value to your community and the people that you know. If you want to learn a little bit more about finance, we're happy to help. So thanks. Just reach out to us and we're happy to arrange it, and we'll come to your college campus and do a college takeover too.
And thank you everyone for watching. Please stay on the lookout for our next episode of the podcast. And as always, like and subscribe and share our episodes with anyone you think would like to listen to them.
This podcast is brought to you by David Field Producer. It is produced and directed by David Field and Kristen George. And it's mix, edit, and socials by Kristen George. Blanky Shine Wealth Management is a group of investment professionals registered with Hightower Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC, and with Hightower Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities, LLC. Advisory services are offered through Hightower Advisors, LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is not indicative of current or future performance and is not a guarantee. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data and information referenced herein are from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analysis, prices, or other information contained in this research is provided as general market commentary. It does not constitute investment advice. Blanky Shine Wealth Management and Hightower shall not in any way be liable for claims and make no expressed or implied representations or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the data and other information, or for statements or errors contained in or omissions from the obtained data and information referenced herein. The data and information are provided as of the date referenced. Such data and information are subject to change without notice. This document was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are solely those of Blanky Shine Wealth Management and do not represent those of Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates.